I would like to officially call this meeting to order at 6 p.m. Director Phipps, could you please do a roll call?
Certainly, Madam Mayor.
He-
Madam
Oh.
Mayor,
Here.
Councilman Goldsmith,
Here.
Councilman Trolinger,
Present.
Councilwoman Bryant Ward,
Present.
Councilman Jenkins.
Present.
Madam Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Would you all please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Council, if you have had a moment to look at tonight's agenda and it is satisfactory, I would entertain a motion to approve the meeting agenda as presented.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I move that we accept the meeting minute agenda for April 18, 2023 as presented.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And also, if you have had a moment to look at the minutes, I would entertain a motion to approve the April 11th minutes as presented.
Madam Mayor, I recommend we approve the minutes of April 11th as presented.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Brings us to our public comment portion of our agenda. Would anybody like to speak? All right, seeing that no one has signed up, we will go on right to the main event. Here we go. Award of the Independent. It looks like it's the Larsen show today. Are we ready? Come on down. You can sit. I'm not going to make you stand the whole time because you're going to park it for a while here. So come on down. And if you want your little cohort over there to come up there too, she can come up there. Come on. Don't worry, we'll still get you in the back. If you could just lightly tap on the microphone so that we can, on the bottom, right there where it's the, there you go. Very good.
Okay.
All right, this is the award of the Independent Auditor contract. Floor is yours.
So, Posner Resnick, our former auditors, are no longer providing auditor services. So we put out an RFP to solicitate proposals. We received two, one from Mitchell and Titus and the other one from UHY. After reviewing both of these proposals and comparing the service level of each of them, we are recommending that the council approve an engagement with Mitchell and Titus. Part of the reasons why, first of all, they are specializing in governmental organizations. Daniel Kenny was the managing partner with Koenig and Resnick, so he's very familiar with the town's needs and the auditing process. Their proposal included everything we requested in the RFP from the audit, generally based on the generally accepted accounting standards, the financial report, the UFR, the single audit for the ARPA, and the fiscal presentation for the council. The other thing they did, they have also provided very detailed listings of the tasks, the transactions that are going to be tested, what's going to be analyzed, and the review for compliance. They will be providing additional services within their RFP, routine consultations out throughout the year, the analysis and implementation of new GASB pronouncements. Financial statements will be prepared based on the annual comprehensive financial reporting standards outlined by GFOA. They will also prepare the financials or assist in the preparation of the financials for the GFOA Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. The proposal includes a summary of 600 hours for their staff and the type of staff that will be doing or allocated for the type of staff. The cost of this proposal is $78,800 for the first year. It does slightly go up several years, the next 2 years, because it's a 3-year proposal. For the ARPA audit, it is an additional $10,000. The second proposal we've received was from UHY LLP. They provided a listing of the services, which included the audit based on the generally accepted auditing standards, the basic financial report, the ARPA single audit, and a presentation to the council. They did not include the UFR. And when I reached out to them, asking them about the UFR, they did not answer that particular question. They will provide 8 hours of training for the GASB pronouncements, but they will not do any type of analysis or implementation. The cost is $47,500. However, they did not provide a detail of how much staff time will take, what type of staff will perform the audit, and it does specify in their proposal that if their estimates were incorrect, they can adjust the price and the timeline by their discretion. For the statements prepared based on the annual comprehensive financial reporting standards is an additional $3,000, and the ARPA single audit is $5,000. Based on this information, I was requesting that we go with Mitchell and Titus.
Thank you very much. I'll open the floor before I say anything. Do questions? Go ahead.
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you for your presentation. When you said that UHY LLP didn't provide the type of staffing, they did provide 3 individuals that would be working on our behalf. Did you mean something else?
Well, what I was trying to get them to identify is how many hours are going to spend on this audit.
Okay.
They did not answer that question.
Okay, so you mean hours, not the type of
Well,
staffing?
that too, because Mitchell and Titus broke down the number of hours and how many hours for each type of staff.
Right. So I did see that they provided us with the type of staff. Cronin Resnick, how many individuals were on their team?
Well, we had Daniel Kenny as the managing partner, and then there were 2 others.
2 others.
Yeah.
So this Mitchell and Titus, they have 5 auditors with an average of 26.2 years of experience. The lowest individual experience was 15 years. Everybody else 26, 31, 35, 35. UHY LLP 10 years, 30 years. Do we need, if they were recommending 3 team members, Cronin Resnick was able to do the work with 3 team members, why do we need 5 experienced individuals? Because I think that's the cost.
I think my concern was between the 2 contracts is that the information in this contract was very basic, and I had nothing to base on how they came up with it. And Daniel Kenny is familiar with our organization, so he's probably estimating this based on what they need to do with the additional services that they're providing.
So did we have those additional services from Cronin Resnick?
We did not have the GFOA achievement of certificate. That was not something we did. They provided some support with the implementation of GASB's new pronouncements. I was not really involved or as much seeing any analysis being done on that end.
Yeah, I guess my concern, and I have no problems with, your proposal, but if Cronin Resnick did a good job for us in the years that they did it, and the other individuals, even though their RFP was not as complete and they did not provide as much information, why do we need 5 individuals with that level of experience to do the same level of work? Our organization, hasn't grown significantly for them to require 5 experienced, highly paid individuals, I can assure you, to do this work. That would be my only concern.
I get that. And I'll be honest, when I saw their proposal, I was kind of shocked. But when I started looking at their proposal compared to them, and I was looking at what they proposed as the rates, and then I looked at the actual hourly rate of the positions, the hourly rate of the positions were much higher than Mitchell and Titus's hourly rates. So it really kind of concerned me is how are they proposing this amount, but their hourly rates are higher, and yet they wouldn't answer my questions regarding the number of hours that they use to base their pricing on, and they wouldn't provide me a pricing on the UFR.
And I truly hear what you're saying because, omission,
Mhm.
leads you to speculation. But my only concern again is that we need 5 highly experienced individuals to do this work. And I do believe that we're paying for those highly experienced individuals. Could the work not have been done by 3 as opposed to 5? That's my only question.
Yeah, I'm not sure to the answer. But I will say one thing. My concern also being that you guys did not have a treasurer for almost, 7 months, that there's a lot that needs to go through.
Thank you very much.
Just
Go
a
ahead.
quick question. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilman Jenkins, Ward 4. Thank you again for the proposals. So this is a 3-year contract, and that's typically what an auditor would do. So
That's
after
what-
3 years, do you switch again?
I requested a 3-year proposal. Yeah.
And then I'm trying to refresh my memory. What was the previous auditor's fee on an annual as compared to this one? Is it similar or is this one higher?
Oh, yeah, this one is about 30,000 higher than the previous amount that
Okay.
we paid. Last for FY 22, it was 46,000.
Hmm.
FY 23, it was 45. As I look through the history, there are times that we have contracted for much higher, like in 2010, our contract was for 48,000 when we were running around 42. And again, in 2016, we increased significantly from 34 to 42. And that probably could be because of the services needed at that time to do those audits.
Thank you.
Jim Goals, Ward 1. It's one thing what's on paper. Do you know each one of these personally or by reputation?
The only one I know is Daniel Kenny.
Yes, Matt Trolander, Ward 2. Thank you for the report and for, I think, a better understanding based on Councilwoman Bryant Ward and Councilman Jenkins' questions. So I had the same concerns. So Mr. Kenny worked with us before with Cohen Resnick, so he knows, when going to this new spot, this is a significant increase.
Yes.
I mean, and I think, and I gotta say, I kind of have the same concerns Councilwoman Bryant Ward had as to, we've got even the major principal auditor that was previously working with 2 additional folks. I mean, we've got some room to talk with them about that. They are aware of what our cost was, right?
I can bring it up to them about what they're entailing. I mean, they have a pretty detailed proposal on what they're going to provide. I can ask him why it's so much more, but they did specify exactly they were planning to do 600 hours of auditing service preparation for the reports to the annual comprehensive financial report and to the GFOA certificate of achievement of financial reporting.
And I guess I think everybody's question probably is that what we need? Does that fit our requirements? And I hear you on the 7-month issue, which is major, but that doesn't necessarily count for year 2 and 3 of the contract, which is escalated, right? Do you know what I mean?
Would you be open to me going back to them and asking them to do a 1-year proposal and reevaluate the second year?
I mean, I think we should talk to them about that big jump and if that's more helpful. I mean, clearly we have a relationship with the principal and he knows what we have needed in the past. I don't know that we need the same maybe in the year 1 that we do in 2 and 3. Maybe that's for you to tell us.
Okay.
So my concern was, well, I liked how they said 600 hours, so they gave us a clear
Mhm.
one. I'm always one that's kind of by the books. If you give an RFP and it's incomplete, I mean, then obviously you don't want it as badly as someone else, but that jump is very large. I would be interested to see if, just like my colleagues have mentioned, what if we just say, guys, we only need 3? If we cut it back to 3 instead of 5? I don't know if that's a possibility, and I hate to make you do more work on that, but to go from 78,000 and you told us we were 48,000 last year?
47.
Yeah, that's that when all that they are bringing to my naked
Mhm.
eye here that I saw is the OA evaluation on that. I mean, they have committed to 600 hours, which is great. I don't know how many hours it takes for accounting. That's why I don't do anything like that. I still have to do my taxes and it's only been a year. So, those kind of things. But I think that if we can see, all right, 3 people instead of
Mhm.
5 on there, and why, when Daniel does know exactly what we did last year, but he also knows the situation we are in, that there was a 7-month gap.
Yeah.
Do we need that? You're the expert on that, but we have to make sure that we're spending this money wisely. So I think we all have a pretty good concern about that big jump.
Mhm.
And my concern, and you're saying, and if you look at it, the 7 months would be the first year for me that they would have to make it up, but they didn't increase the first year and
Mhm.
decrease
Yeah.
subsequent years. They went the opposite direction. And I'm certainly not saying not the 3 years. I get that you want to work with the same auditors for 3 years. That makes sense to me. What doesn't make sense to me is the 5. The one guy is for technology. It says absolutely nothing about him being engaged in the actual daily work. So if we could see if we could reduce the number of individuals,
Okay.
not necessarily, the years of the
Mhm.
agreement. That's what I'm asking,
Okay.
because I really believe we're paying for the highly experienced individuals, and there are 5 of them, the lowest having 15 years of experience. That's it for me.
Okay. I will
Thank
go
you.
back to him regarding that.
And when do you need to sign this contract by?
Well, in their timeline, I did. By April 31st or April 30th, they were going to do a planning meeting. Interim work would have been done by June 20th. So this is something that really needs to start.
So could we bring it back next week
Mhm.
at next week's meeting? Okay. Thank you. Yes.
Is this something we can say, if they can make some adjustments, if they can make adjustments, that we give you permission to move forward with the agreement rather than having to come back?
Yes, I would rather bring them back to you since we are meeting next week, if they can turn that around. Um, One of my concerns is they say 600 hours, if it's 3 employees or if it's 5 employees, 600 hours is still 600 hours. So that may not be as much of a advantage to us. One of the other things is we could look to see if there's different elements within the RFP that we maybe do not want. Like I think Councilman Trollinger pointed out, the budget certificate. That the funny, yeah. So there may be areas that we can look at specifically within the scope of work. I think what we, with the timing of everything, I will say I was surprised we only had 2 respondents. 2 is I don't think we want to, I think we'd like to try to avoid going back out and running the RFP again, just because of the timing of but if we had, time was not an issue, that would be the obvious answer, is to run the RFP again and see if we could have any more. Of course, we're right in tax time, so a lot of accounting firms can't get their head out of the water, so to speak, because of that. So I don't think it would be any more advantageous for us to run the RFP again. But yeah, we'll try to work with the vendor that Karina has putting forward and see if there's a way we can bring that back to you next week with maybe what the council would consider a more competitive.
And that
proposition.
makes sense. I certainly don't want you to go back out there again. You've got this information, you know what they can do. Again, making sure that what they're doing is what we need to have done.
Okay.
You know, that's it. Thank you.
All right, you ready for the next one?
So, we were informed that Tyler Technologies will not be supported by our servers as of October 1st of this year. So we were looking at we're looking at options, and there's two of them. One is moving to Tyler's hosted servers or upgrading our servers to support the system in-house. After talking to our IT contractor, he suggested it'd probably be more beneficial to go with the hosted environment with Tyler. Part of the reasons that would work out well is the most recent finance and security updates would automatically be run instead of every Tuesday of the month. The other is the Tyler Technologies will manage any support that we need, any maintenance remotely, and we don't have to, again, wait for the consultant to come in to do that. It is a cloud-based system, so there is no physical hardware that we'll have to maintain. And it also ended up costing $10,000 less for the service because of the cost to maintain the servers. So the total fees for this is an annual fee. It's $48,893. And we are going to use the ARPA funds that were allocated for Information Technology Project 17 to fund the first year.
All right, thank you very much. This one seems like a very easy one, but I'm going to open it up to council to see if anybody has any questions or comments.
I do. And this one was easy for me because I do this all the time, so I have no problems with the proposal. My question is, if we were currently right now over budget with what we were proposing, and we're doing this with ARPA funds this year, how will we do it? How will we fund it next year?
We would have to find the funding. It's actually based on what we're currently paying. We are currently paying around 30,000 right now.
So you look at that.
Yeah, and then it also, we would be saving costs with the IT consultant because he wouldn't be no longer handling this anymore.
Just a quick clarification for me. Thank you, Councilman Jenkins, Ward 4. Thank you again for the update on this. Didn't we terminate a contract with Tyler, the planning department? Or
Intergov. This is Tyler InCode.
so
The
there's
financial
a difference,
Mhm.
but the same company.
Same company, but different software.
So is there any concerns about their reliability in terms of,
We haven't had
happened with
any.
okay.
This system is very different from the service and the abilities of Intergov.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking for a consensus from the council to move this on to legislation.
Oh, yeah, so I was just gonna say I'm familiar with Tyler as a hosting program. I think the courts use it with MDEC and with filing, and they're very, it's very easy to use, and it's been I don't know, it was a big process to go paperless, and they seem to have done it swimmingly well. So thank you for putting this together.
All right, yes.
Yes.
Okay, it's all 5 of us are yes. Thank you very much. We'll see this in a little bit. This brings us to, see, that wasn't so bad. We'll get you on the other side. So this brings us to 4.3, which is the Plata Town Center Corporation update from Councilman Jenkins. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, Councilman Jenkins, Ward 4. This was a request to bring to your attention some concerns, but also maybe have a further discussion. I apologize, but I sent some information out Saturday, and it was a typing error, so I didn't proofread it good enough. So you should have a memo, and then there were two reports attached to that. And the reason for so we've met twice, and we should have met more, but we haven't. But we've had different phone calls. I have provided them with a lot of information about what the town's doing because of their interest in transportation issues and the library and those kinds of issues. And then, and before I forget this, they were also, they knew about this meeting tonight. And so I asked them if they would care to come in person or virtual. They could certainly do that. I know Mr. Abel couldn't be here because he was out of town on business. So just to make sure that they were aware of it. So we've had a lot of different discussions about transportation. They're very interested in that. And to be very frank, from my perspective, there was a lot of pushback about looking for projects. And we were discussing Charles Street. And there was a lot of discussion about, well, why should we improve Charles Street if we don't have a La Plata bypass? So that was my concern. And so we really haven't, unfortunately, not reached a level where we're talking about projects or their focus. And again, that's a function of maybe not meeting enough. And so I take responsibility for that. But the same token, from my perspective, I wouldn't be in favor of a La Plata bypass because it's never going to happen. There's no funding. There's no way to do that. And frankly, I think we already have a bypass when you come down Washington Avenue, you go to Rosewick and you go to Radio Station Road and you have choices. But the whole point is those two reports, I believe, have a number of recommendations for both organizational that the organization could do, and then there are specific projects. So I'm just bringing that forward to express that, and frankly, that impasse and what we should. And I laid out several items or options, and they're also open to further discussion and other options or alternatives, particularly now that we have started a process where we're going to work with the state to improve Charles Street. So that's a big plus for us. So
The one thing that we had discussed, I guess when this group all came together as council, whether they were in good standing or not.
they're still not, they have not filed the paperwork yet.
So to me, we could have a robust conversation about what we could, what we couldn't do, all of that. But I think this is premature since they aren't in good standing. And I don't think we would bring any other organization forward to talk to about what ifs on there. So until they are in good standing, I don't see this conversation moving forward with the what ifs because they were formed in 2013, I believe, and I think they fell out of good standings in 2014, perhaps maybe 2015. So they have not been in good standings yet. So before this comes to us and has any funding requests, which I know there wasn't in this proposal, or the what ifs about dissolving, which is not in our purview anyway. You just happen to be sitting on the board. We don't have anything to do with that. I think this conversation is a bit premature, but I would love for once they do finally become in good standing to use, to see what their intentions are and possibly have them, as you mentioned, with part of Main Street, Maryland, because I think they would thrive that way. But until then, I don't believe we should be having a conversation about what ifs. That is just my opinion, and I'll open it up to anybody else if there's anybody else who would like to speak.
Madam Mayor, so my concern is not the what ifs, is that because they're not in good standing, they're not a viable entity. They are not a corporation. They basically don't exist. And so to try and move forward with any engagement, we're engaging individuals. We're not engaging a corporation until they're in good standing. They are not a corporation.
I hear you, and thank you for that perspective. My dilemma is when I talk to them about that, the response, and again, they can speak for themselves. I'm speaking conversations we've had, but they seem to want more direction from us before they want to go back and be in good standing. I mean, that's the conversation we had several months ago. So we're kind of playing round robin here. So is it the chicken or the egg? And I don't frankly know the answer per se, because very bluntly, the form is like 4 pages and frankly, I could do it, but that's not my function.
And I think that if I recall a few months ago, or maybe it's even a year, don't quote me on the time. I thought you indicated that you were going to try to get them into good standing on that. And has any movement?
No.
Have you done any movement on that?
As I said earlier, there was discussion of that, about that on several phone calls. And they recognized they needed to do that, but they still thought they wanted more direction from us.
And
So we're
it
kind of
doesn't
playing around
cost-
robin here.
It doesn't cost
There is no
anything.
cost.
So in my opinion, and it is only my opinion, why not do that if there's no cost, except it is cost of time? And then you have the option to say, okay, we're moving forward or we're not as a corporation. Then you get that you can bring it to the table. As it stands right now, we can't bring it to the table.
Well, and I understand that part, but for me, and speaking as one individual, my only, I guess, I understand what you're saying, and I appreciate that discussion. But I was also hoping at some point, whether it be tonight or in the future, that we have also a discussion about how we want to proceed on Main Street, regardless of what La Plata Town Center is or isn't. Because we're in the budget cycle and we've talked about Main Street for about 20 years. And we're an affiliate member, and we've kind of never really come to have a more robust discussion about it, whether we do it at a separate meeting or closed session, whatever. But that's my only caveat of that. I hear you. So
Yeah.
I go back to it. But I still think part of this request was also to talk about the Main Street program.
And I know you have the institutional knowledge of this because you were the one that formed it back in 2013.
Well, it wasn't me. It was a bunch of other folks.
Yeah, but you're the signature on it, because,
Well, that wasn't my idea, but yes.
well,
And it shouldn't have been that way, to be frank about it. That shouldn't have been.
I know the previous council did discuss this with one of another council members that sat on that board, and they were, there seemed to be an interest in forming an alliance, or maybe even taking over for the Main Street Maryland program. But again, I don't know. We're talking in silos, and it would be very nice to have those two corporations as one mission, one vision, and the Main Street Maryland. So I task you to see if they can get into good standing and then bring them back. And we would love to have all of the interested board members here once they're in good standing to see how we can make this happen, because I still think that that is a great corporation if they are in good standing, that could aid in seeing our vision of what with the sidewalks, the Charles Street, the bike trails, all of that. I think that the people that are currently serving, and it would have to be a recruitment probably of new blood as well. I think they can really make a difference in our town.
And point well taken. And so I have provided all that information to them, and to their credit, they said they would certainly want to, when we were all first elected, and I talked to them, they said they would come back, but they also realized at some point in time they'd like to move on and get some other people in it.
Yeah.
At some point in time, whenever that is, I don't know.
But
So,
definitely, please bring it back to us once they are in good standing, if there's still an interest from the Plata Town Center Corporation. And once they are in good standing, we would love to hear from them to see how we move forward.
okay.
Any other questions?
Just
Tom?
one other, and the document that you submitted 2 documents, and they were excellent documents. The one that was drafted in 2012,
Yep.
I think would probably need to be revisited because it's a little dated. And so.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Finish up.
And so I think that whoever drafted that, if you, once you guys are back in good standing and operating as a board, if they could have that document looked at to incorporate some of the more current issues and concerns, that would be excellent, because it was an excellent read.
Yeah, and I agree with you, because the person who wrote that at one time worked for Main Street America, and I still keep in contact with her. But point well taken that the data probably needs to be updated. But I do think that a lot of the organizational recommendations are very relevant even today, because it gives, to me, a framework of what not only it complements how the Plata Town Center was organized, because it was organized from the bylaws from Main Street. So So that reference report in 2012 provides, again, a lot of specific organizational actions that could benefit the organization, whatever organization wants to be part of Main Street in La Plata. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. All right, that brings us to legislation. We are going to skip the first one and hopefully have that next week. And we are going to go on to resolution 23-16. Mr. Manuel? Gently.
Here we go. Madam Mayor, Town Council, before you, Resolution 23-16, Tyler InCode Software as a Service for introduction and consideration of adoption, a resolution concerning Tyler Technology InCode SaaS for the purpose of authorizing the town manager to enter into a software as a service SaaS agreement for financial management with Tyler Technologies Incorporated and all matters related thereto.
Thank you very much. Do I have a motion to adopt resolution 23-16 as presented?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I move that we adopt resolution 23-16, Tyler Technologies InCode Service as Service Agreement.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Thank you, Jim. Any discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item on our agenda are the commission reports. We're going to start down with you.
And I have one this time.
I love that. And I hope you have a little update on Saturday too. So go ahead, Councilman Goldsmith.
Basically, the DRB met, and they really only had one item on the agenda, and that was basically a new common sign plan for the Plata Shopping Center. And that was just technical updates and such.
All right.
No bad discussions.
And did something go on this weekend?
Yes, you bailed out at the last minute and gave me a call.
You know what? Was your mic on for that one?
Yes.
It was, of course. You filled in and did beautifully. Please share what you filled in for.
Basically, we had an individual who actually lives in La Plata, not the town limits of La Plata, but in La Plata, right off the Route 6 wing out there, who has turned 100 years old. And they were doing a celebration for him. His family was putting it together, and they were down at the Elks Lodge in Newburgh. And that's where I grew up at down there. So I thought I might have known the gentleman at that time. But then once I started talking to him, head of the function, I realized he was strictly a La Plata. But it was a very nice function. His grandchildren were basically putting it on, recognizing him. They had representation from the town. And then they also had the county commissioners there, Reuben Collins, Ms. Coates, and Mr. Patterson. And then also Edith Patterson was there representing the state as well, and had a presentation as well from Sonny Hoyer, and then another one from the president as well. Yeah, the kind of things we normally, they get done, those type things. Very nice function. He still coherent. He's not as mobile as he would like to be, but he's 100 years old now too. But he was able to transfer from his wheelchair to his walker type thing, and then from there to the table. So it was very nice. It was very well done.
And you know what, Councilman Goldsmith, I chose you because I thought you might have gone to school with him.
I'm not that. But actually, he was one of the inaugural class of Bell Howland High School. now, too,
Wow.
So
There's so much history in there, and thank you
was.
so much for attending on behalf of the council.
and I think he and his wife have been married 76 years.
Wow. I love the stories like
Yeah.
that. That's one of the fun.
No, it was nice. I appreciate you thinking of me.
Thank you. And I appreciate you filling in for me and throwing me under the buses as well. All right, Councilman Trollinger.
No report. We were scheduled for a meeting for beautification on the 20th, but that has been rescheduled for the 25th. So I'll keep you posted in a couple meetings.
Thank you very much, Councilwoman Bryant Ward.
No report.
Councilman Jenkins.
Thank you. The Parks and Recreation Commission meeting in April was postponed or canceled, so we'll be meeting again in early May.
Thank you very much. And upcoming, and I will repeat it next week as well, but we've got Celebrate La Plata and the bed races that will be on the 29th, Saturday, the 29th. And then even more importantly than normal, on unfortunately, we lost a 10-year-old was living with autism over the last week. And I know the chief is very passionate about bringing awareness to autism, as am I. And I know on the 30th, we will be having Pathfinders come down. I believe it's at 12, but do you remember, Mike? Is that 12 o'clock at Wills Park? So it is an event that everyone should pop by if they can and really learn a little bit about autism and work within our community. So those are the two things that I have. What we're going to do is we're going to now go down. We're going to come down to the table here and do our budget report. If everyone wouldn't mind transferring down there and maybe take a 5-minute little break, go get a drink of water and get ready for our budget. We will be back in just a second.
Yeah, we got shown. What I would do is the future side of the building. Yes. I had no idea what that is. I want you to go something.
Yeah.
Unpredictable.
It's not like, the next.
No, she's not. It's just.
And they sell it in buckets. Okay.
That's why I'm glad.
You know how we have teams and stuff.
From me and her. That's why you should never do it.
Yeah.
Other than that.
Make sure I don't have one in my bag. If I don't. All right. Go back to my.
Three accountants, and then there was the managing partner, Daniel Kenny.
Okay, so there's only 4 and not 5.
Correct. During the previous audit, there was a staff member underneath. There were 2 team managers, essentially. Dan was the managing partner, that's 3, and then there was a lower level staff accountant involved. That would have been 4,
Okay.
to my,
Okay.
yes, with Conan.
Yes, for the previous one. And question really begs, who's worth the extra $30,000?
And I will find out for you about that this week.
Thank you very much. All right. So, thank you all for taking that little bit. And, we are going into our FY24 budget and financial planning.
You can sit down if you like.
Please, figure it out.
No, I mean, I was just gonna review the summaries and we can go into the details based on the questions that you guys may have regarding the preparation of the budget. And then I was gonna talk about how we calculated the rates and the different percentages of the rates and the effect on the expenses to revenues based on the rate that's being calculated. So I was really just gonna have the spreadsheets up since everybody has the summaries.
Does everybody have a copy? It's part of the agenda.
Yeah.
Okay, you have.
Share.
Um,
Let me. Does anybody have a spare copy of it?
I'd say make copies of it.
Oh,
it's not,
Sure.
Okay. Projected.
well, if they have questions on how we came up with these expenses and where the line items that
Just project it on the screen. Yeah. We can't. Can't get there from here.
Maybe.
Maybe.
anytime, were there any obvious, like, real questions that you have regarding the sanitation? Because we're going with sanitation first.
And council, feel free just to chime in. Obviously, I see the $200,000, $230,000 increase from projected
I'm telling you the English salary.
salary. Okay, that's good.
80,000 from the salary as of March 31st. Compared to the salary and benefits March 31st of 2022, it's up 180,000, but that's for all enterprise funds.
Have you had an increase in employees as well?
That's my question, right?
No.
Okay, it's not new people.
We have 23 budgeted positions for 2023. And we're asking for 40.3 budgeted positions for FY 24. But we haven't asked for any additional positions, and that's total between both the enterprise fund and public works. The main adjustment in salary was
65% off.
because of the 65%.
Right.
And it literally took the increase in salaries up considerably. So, and we only have currently 32 positions hired. So we are actually down for the fiscal year by 8 positions. We still have those that, you know, are budgeted for, but are unhired at this point.
There are, because each public works position is allocated through different like streets, sanitation more has full EFTs, but there's some that still get allocated to it. They get allocated to water and sewer. So based on that allocation, in sanitation, there should be 8.85 employees. And right now there's a vacancy of 3.45 employees in sanitation.
Are all of the 32 employees 1.0 FTEs? Are they 1.0 FTEs?
All the public works employees are a full-time one.
There's only one that's not, and that's Joe Keys that cleans
Yeah,
here,
that's
and
fine.
he's 0.3.
The general fund.
Yes.
This is.
1.5 days.
Employee schedule is based on a full-time equivalent
Okay.
on how it's allocated to each of the funds. So sanitation, they're allocated 8.85 employees to that fund and 3.5 is station.
So we have 32. Did you budget for the 43 that we should have?
Yeah.
Good.
So, yes. So in the budget.
40.3.
40.3.
So in the general fund, you have everybody budgeted
Okay.
in the enterprise fund.
Okay.
And there is a separate breakout sheet
Right.
that showed exactly what is allocated to. It's towards the end of the list.
I think this way, instead of just doing one public works, because it is funded by different revenues.
I don't have
You
that.
got your general fund that's
Right.
It's okay.
funded by tax revenue, and then you got your enterprise
By
fund
users.
by rate.
Okay.
So it's really inadequate to say, oh, well, these are all employees, but really the fund, the revenue comes from two different places.
Mhm.
And that's why I'll have another sheet for all employees, but right now I've broken it out based on where they're allocated.
I totally get that. I do it by cost center, so I understand.
So if you have 8 positions you have to fill,
We do, and we've been very conservative with those and filling them. We just made an offer on the inspector position. We still have to interview for the GIS position.
well, I guess my question is, so obviously you hope to fill those because you need them.
We believe
And then do you need more after that, based upon the staffing study that was done
the
last year?
additional 3.3 that we need was to add the third truck. We have added one position right now in sanitation, and that's for the third driver. So what we're doing now is we're still using 2 trucks to run the routes.
Okay,
And what we're doing is we take another driver and he takes an empty truck out
right,
and then takes the full truck and goes to the landfill while the other guys continue to pick up trash. And so in the near term, we believe that that's going to fulfill our need. And so we've been conservative with it, but we do still have those additional positions to be able to add that in there.
okay.
We will at some point, of course, with the addition of Pine Grove and with some of the other developments, we're gonna have to add a third truck at some point. But to be honest, we're being very conservative in the situation and trying to do what we can to utilize the resources. So, you know, Karina knows me well enough to know I spend what I need, not what I have. So I'm not going out here
positions for FY 24 than was already at for FY 23.
Oh, I guess that was the question I was trying to get to. Thank you, thank you.
Karina, I noticed the total income and other financing sources. There's a difference of almost 151,000, whereas FY 24 is a little less than what we had for FY 23. We're looking at total income and other financing sources where it was almost 2.1 for FY 23 and it's 1.9 for FY 24.
In a total,
The total.
yeah.
What is the difference? It's about 151,000. What is accounting for that?
So if we look at that went up. So our revenues for fees, that went up from budgeted of 1,070 to 1.3 million.
So are we taking in, if I'm reading this correctly, we're taking in less income in FY 24 than we are in FY 23?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
but to the tune of almost 151,000, a little less.
No. 50,000. You're looking at the projected. The projected is.
Yes.
So it's about 50,000 less. And part of that is this miscellaneous revenue. I have no idea what that was for FY 23, but I don't have anything that's falling under that category there. See what else?
So Karina, so when we are looking at this budget,
Mhm.
because you're the guru, those two over there, you guys are, should we be looking not at the projected? Because to me, the projected is what you guys think is going to be the worst case scenario, and that's the.
Well, the projected
Is
here
the-
is based on an assumption that we will continue getting the same revenue through the end of the fiscal year, based on what was as of February 28th.
Okay,
So I took and looked at, well, how much revenue did we make as of February 28th?
Divided
And
by 8.
assumed that we were going to continue the same rate.
so wouldn't that be the best way to compare, because that's the end of FY 23 and now we're projecting FY 24 instead of what the actual is? Am I off on that?
You could look at it that way. I'm also making assumptions. There could be revenues in here that we
Don't
Don't collect.
receive. There could be one-time revenues that we received earlier in the year that we're not receiving, that we won't receive later.
Okay,
For the most part, it should be pretty close. I mean, I'm showing that we're gonna be 30,000 more in the fees, and that's based on, okay, I ran a report through December 31st on the fee because I knew it's every quarter, and I added in the other 2 quarters.
annualize it out. You annualize the 8 months of actuals out to for 12 months.
Except for like the collection and disposal fees, I know that gets collected on a quarter. So I took what was December 31st and basically doubled it.
okay.
Yeah, and as more houses go online, we're gonna be generating more fees because there's gonna be more accounts and
You know, the funny thing has been with enterprise fund revenue for the last 15 years, even like water, water has been a very interesting piece because it really hasn't increased. Water consumption in the town of La Plata since I've been here has really only grown about 50,000 gallons a day in the entire 15 years that I've been here. We were using over 700,000. And when you look at today, we're averaging just a little over 8. So we really haven't grown. When we went to the tiered billing, we saw a considerable drop in water consumption. And water consumption has gone up and down, basically depending on how dry things are during the summer and things like that. And of course, you know, 2 of our major funds have been fluctuating up because the sewer fund is funded by how much water people use. And so we have seen this revenue kind of ebb and flow a little bit, but there haven't been the major increases that
and we also moved into a conservation movement that people were trying to use less water, but then we saw an uptick when COVID hit because everyone was home, so they were using more water.
Right.
And that's why we have to, what, that one.
And we
couple
may see
years-
it fall off a little bit. I mean.
Right. So it's all fluctuates.
And did it change any because we upgraded the meters too? We weren't getting accurate readings with the upgrade to the meters. Have any variance on that?
We
Very
have
well could.
actually, as we've been working on this, we have seen an uptick in water just in the last 2 quarters
Mhm.
since we've really been working on the meter problem. So
Okay.
it has gone up.
We also talked about having Baker Tilly look at our rate structure
That
to
was
see if
my
there's other
question.
ways that we could sort of equalize. And you could, but you know, the most places I've worked in the past had a minimum bill, for example, and it was $2,000 or 2,000 gallons of water a month. That was the minimum. So if you were under that, you still paid 2,000 for 2,000 gallons
Wow.
capacity within the
Do you-
system.
This is probably premature, but do you anticipate rate increases for water and sewer
Yes,
Material
and
costs.
stormwater management and the rest of them
yes.
based upon inflation? Or I mean,
Well,
what's
let me
the?
say that. And I'd give you the example in
Mhm.
sewer. You really have 4 costs.
It's on page.
You have labor,
Mhm.
you have electricity, you have chemicals, and you have repairs and maintenance.
Okay.
Which one of those are going down? And that's,
No,
the
but
the
that-
reality is
that's a
they
good
don't go
explanation.
down, they're going up. And what we
Mhm.
try and do is control how high they go up. But I would tell you chemicals have gone through the roof, and we've seen over a 25% rate increase in chemicals in the last year and a half.
And so I appreciate that perspective and something to keep in mind that if and when we have new rates, that's something that the public should know about when they see
And
their new
And
rates
the
come
thing
up.
of it is that like with labor, the big adjustment in labor was the fact
Mhm.
that we
Right.
made the adjustment
Right.
last year,
Yep.
which has really come to fruition for
Yep.
us. And it's been positive. It's been well received by the
Mhm.
people. We haven't seen the kind of turnover that we generally, I mean, we see more turnover because we're at the lower end in the
Right.
public works arena. But we really haven't seen a lot of our licensed guys leave and that kind like we had been seeing. So I think they've seen that. Electricity certainly went up last year. I spoke to Tom Dennison from Smeco. And they really don't see, the rates are gonna they're gonna go higher just because of fuel costs. But they're looking in the 10 to 20%. I think we budgeted 20. Oh, 10, that's right. Yes. Right.
I put it 30.
Wow.
Ooh,
Yeah, I,
really?
One of the things that's just happened
Wow.
recently is that the OPEC nations just made
Lowering
a
production.
1,000,000 barrel a day cut
Right.
in production, which you've seen recently at the gas pumps have increased prices
Yep.
30 to 40 cents just in the last few weeks. So I don't think that, what Karina and I had originally talked about is far off. I think you need to, we tried to budget conservatively in that, and conservative meaning that we budgeted a little bit higher because of the fluctuations in rate.
So just helps. So I'm looking and I hope I'm looking at the right thing. I'm looking at the summary package that was put in the for the agenda. It's in the agenda. Is that what we're okay?
Yes.
I want to make sure we're all working from the same thing.
Meaning that our revenues are lower in FY 24 than FY 23 is because we used vehicle reserve 340,000 to fund the vehicle purchase, and that's considered revenue when putting the money together.
thank you.
So my question is, when we're looking at FY 23, in the column that says actual as of 2/28, we start seeing actuals when it gets down to
Yeah.
expenses.
The revenues, because of how we bill the revenues, that would have been an inaccurate number. So I took it differently for the revenues because I was looking at December 31st, not February 28th. But when I do the expenses, that's the date that I use to run the reports. So I didn't put the actuals for the revenues. because I projected them out on a different date range.
But so when you projected revenue, you projected revenue as of December 31st, 2022.
Yes.
Why would you do that when we're on a fiscal year?
Mid-year.
We have billings report, our first billing for FY 22 would cover July 3rd through September.
Right.
And then you've got the billing for October 1st through December.
December.
Well, when I put this together, the billing was.
Okay, so it would have been March 31st, the next time you had billing.
Yes.
Okay.
That's used to December.
Gotcha. I got you. Okay.
And when she runs budget reports on the other side, she runs them monthly.
Yes.
So on the expense side, you can get. them
Yeah, you
monthly
can get those
instead of-
monthly. I got you.
I didn't want to put that in there because that would give inaccurate information on this. Okay.
Okay. Totally get it.
All right. Continue with the questions. I do see on your, again, I understand the actual versus budgeted and projected, but I'm just looking at what a difference it is for the total expenses and the other financial uses when you have 1.4 million as actual of February 28th, 1.9 as budgeted, and 2.1 essentially as projected. It's interesting that it would be such a big jump in a quarter and a month. For the last one on page 1, where it says total expenses and other financing uses, that there's such a big jump from 1.466 to possibly 1.981 in just that last quarter. Is it
That's
the last one on page 1?
total expenses and other financing use.
And you're seeing the actual on expenses there versus budgeted. I mean, it pretty much jives with what you have for 1.981 is budgeted for FY 23 and then 1.93 for FY 24. But I find that fascinating that at March 1st, essentially, you have 1.4 and that it's going to go up another $500,000 in
It's
a
just,
quarter.
all we're doing is taking the formula of dividing that by
Yeah.
0.66.
So,
So it's just a matter of just simple math of
so
2/3, you're just dividing back by 2/3 to get that number.
That's a lot for a quarter.
February 28th. Then there's some that I overrode because I know it's not going to increase, like the insurance. The insurance isn't going to increase anymore because we've already paid it. So I would have filled that in and not estimate any further of the expense. So I know as of February 28th, our insurance was 6,000. Well, I know it's not going to go up. So I put in a number for that.
Mhm.
And then, let's see, I did another number for depreciation. There was no, we haven't recorded that yet, but I know it's going to happen. So it's not showing in these numbers, but I know at the end of the year, I'm going to put 54,000 for depreciation.
Well, you do a great job with that. It's just always blows my mind with these numbers. And I just want to make sure that we're doing everything right
Yeah,
on that.
and then the other thing, like, the trucks, they were 419,000. Well, I know we're not gonna estimate through
Mhm.
February through June
Right.
for the
So-
trucks. So
Yes.
I override, I have them highlighted, numbers that I have overridden, so it doesn't calculate that projection out.
Thank you for that. Any other questions on page 1?
Oh, you mean sanitation?
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sanitation. All right,
Did
good.
you-
Moving on to
Okay, great.
income expenses for sewer.
You want
Well, no, we're
rate
gonna
for
talk about the rate.
sanitation?
Oh, the rate? for
Yes.
san-
So based on this budget revenues that I'm projecting, we are anticipating a rate of a 20% increase.
Oh, 20%. Okay, so
So our fees right now, we charge for residential are $66. We are requesting to raise the rate to $80 per quarter.
I'm moving.
to
I'm
80.
moving out. of the
Okay,
But
so
let me
Bobby,
go back and explain that when we came here, the rate was actually higher than 66. It was originally 70. And we actually lowered rate for a little while. The challenge has been, to be honest, we should have done that. And if you'll notice in there last year, we had quite a subsidy on the fund balance subsidy. So there was quite a fund balance subsidy last year that bought off the rate. We certainly have the ability, to do that, but
I mean,
your challenge is that's a short-term solution to a long-term problem. And you can buy down this, and that 20% rate, if I'm not mistaken, Karina, only does about half.
yeah,
of what
it's
it
still,
used to do.
we still have a deficit of 334,000
Yeah.
with a 20% rate.
Yeah.
If you say you only want to do 3%, that would make it $68, and that would be a deficit of 526,000. And right now, after the trash trucks, our fund balance is 866,000.
Trust
So-
me, I asked Kevin about increasing rates before. Why hadn't we? So I appreciate it.
and I know that the previous council, we did not, I mean, we went round and round on that. And you told us this day would come.
Well, and that's.
You
I
did.
mean, yeah.
You told us
The
this
bottom
day would
line
come.
is, I am one that, listen. I was here when we did 25% rate increases in some bad years in 2009 and 2010, if I'm not mistaken. And listen, it's a very tough scenario to look at, but I believe very strongly that you don't want to come back to doing these real high rate increases once you run out of fund balance. Nobody wants to see 100% rate increase. And Karina and I went back and forth on this when we were doing this about where we should really be.
Well, if we were to break even, we would have to raise the rate 50% to $100 a quarter. So, yeah. So we're kind of going in the middle to 20%, actually 20.21% to $80.
So it's $14 a quarter more.
And even, I don't want to
$5 a month, essentially more, right?
don't wanna-
4.667.
be beat up by the environmentalist, but some communities, all communities are faced with these same cost increases. And one of the communities I previously worked for, they eliminated curbside recycling, for example, as a way to cut their fees because the state of recycling is much different than it was 5 years ago.
Recycling is not
it's
a
not a-
fee calculation.
right, it's
So
not
that's a
even a-
separate fee, and we're not even increasing it.
Because we have a third party vendor.
Yeah.
But
So,
that's just some of the things, some of the tough decisions other localities have had to make is to eliminate the curbside.
But I think your
Recycling.
summary explanation about the cost going up.
everything's going up, and I
Go-
think it's expected that when everything costs going
Right.
up, everything's gonna follow with it.
So
Salaries are going up,
right.
costs.
And
are
I
going up.
do think it's the way that you present it. If you say
It's a-
20%,
right.
people are like, holy cow. If you say $14 a quarter or 4.67 cents a month,
And then you talk,
that's more palatable.
Mm.
and then you talk about all the increases, like what'd you say for something went up 30% or something? Some
Fuel.
cost, fuel.
Fuel, wow.
So all I'm saying is just a fact sheet that says what goes into these increases. I mean, just to educate the public, but you're
Well,
right. It's
and-
$5 a month. Yeah, okay.
And I do think that we need,
That's all.
you're right, a fact sheet so that we're all on the same page.
Definitely put together sort of a one-page narrative, kind of just a bullet list explaining, hey, listen, this is what we've experienced.
Right.
And therefore, the town's going to experience moving forward.
Mhm.
And I do definitely agree on the approach of breaking it down in that manner. We'd be more than happy to put something. together.
Yeah,
We've-
percentages.
That's not gonna play to everybody, but at least it's out there.
Additional.
Exactly.
And transparency.
Yep,
Yes, absolutely.
yeah.
Definitely.
Percentages is hard to understand, but
Mhm.
cold, hard facts, like
And even
four
just
point six
something
seven.
as simple as a pie chart, because,
Yep.
as
That's
Bobby
good.
said, most of
That-
your expenses are in 4 categories. And if you show,
Yep.
Yeah.
how those 4 categories are breaking out and what
Mhm.
percentage of your
Yep.
X number, $80 a month goes to each. And, if I see fuel, I go, well, yeah, my price went up at the pump. So
Yeah.
theoretically,
car.
the town's
Yes.
price is
Right.
going to go up at the pump, or,
Absolutely.
labor costs or electricity.
One of the things, I'm sorry, I just said more. One of the things that I think is extremely important to point out is that the construction that we are undertaking for the expansion is not being funded. These are operational
Right.
expenses.
Correct.
And so they're not in the rate. These rate increases are purely for the operating
Mhm.
expenses to
Mhm.
operate the wastewater treatment plant
Mhm.
as it is, and not about the increase in capacity that we're building over there. We are funding that with USDA funds.
Right.
And which will be paid back with major facility fees,
Mhm.
which we're collecting on each new house built in La Plata. So I think it's extremely important to understand that what they're paying for in water and sewer is operating expense.
Right.
And it's a challenging business today. As you know, with both water and sewer, the environmental regulation associated with each is not going down.
Mhm.
It is all headed up. And, the Biden administration is really focusing right now on PFAS, which you're hearing a lot on the national news about forever chemicals. And they're now setting new rates as far as what we can, to the 4 trillion, 4 trillionths of um, 4 parts per trillion in the, for PFAS. And it's a forever chemical that's out there. It was in Teflon, it was in waterproof clothing, it was in the triple F firefighting foam, all had those chemicals in there, and it's everywhere now. We're very lucky. We haven't so far seen it in our water system, and we haven't seen it in the wastewater plant, but it's not saying that it won't at some point. So I just point that out to you.
So is that the special tax districting trust that we received income from, the 227,
Yes,
250?
yes.
Wow.
That's their 70% of the debt service.
Mhm.
When we sign the special taxing district, the town pays 30% of the
Right, I
debt service on that. And the Heritage Green Development, which it was
Right.
at that time, pays 70%.
Yeah, she explained
Their
that to us.
70% is that 227.
Okay, that was one of my questions. Thank you.
We done with sanitation?
Yeah, that's in sewer. That's in
Is
sewer.
it still- Oh, I thought we were on this is page 1 of 2.
Yeah, I was looking at the rates for sanitation.
Oh.
We were going with this one.
Sorry. I was happy to see that money. We were just
If you
talking
guys,
about
I
it.
mean, I
All
guess,
right, are we done with the rates increase for sanitation at $14 a quarter?
Yeah.
$4.667 a month.
Makes sense.
We're good. All right.
okay.
We just have a crew that is moving on. I love it. We're looking
I
forward
saw
to
that
it
too.
now.
And we just had this conversation. I was like, okay, well, I've never seen it before, and there it is.
Don't take away her thunder. You're on a roll. Now we're on page 1 of 2.
Of sewer, right?
Yes, we're now on sewer.
Okay.
We're on income and expenses for sewer. All right. Any questions on any of these numbers?
Yes, on page 1 of 2.
Mhm.
I'm not sure I'm following the major facility fees.
Mm-hmm.
Is that going to carry over in FY 24?
It will be put into the fund balance for major facility fees.
and
Yeah,
then-
we don't budget it because it
Oh.
is a reserve
Oh,
and
Got
we
it.
aren't
Okay.
recognizing that revenue.
And then you already answered my question that Councilman Bryant Ward mentioned about the transfer from Heritage Green.
Mhm.
So, thank
Yeah.
you.
All right. Any other questions on that? Right. Fantastic.
Great.
All right, expenses.
All right. So we're on page, this is 2 of 2. 2 of 2 for
expenses.
expenses. All right, any questions, council? Right.
Now, when you're transferring money, when I'm looking at the transfer to vehicle reserve fund
Mhm.
and then transfers to general fund for administration, where are you transferring funds from?
Okay, so the vehicle fund is actually, it's on the expense side, putting money to the vehicle reserve.
Okay,
And then the transfer to general fund for administration, that's the administration cost for like Martha, myself,
where is it coming from? If it's a transfer, where does it?
from the general fund. It's an
Okay.
expense side on the general fund.
Okay.
And then on that same page, under capital, wastewater treatment plant capacity upgrade, is that the USDA loan?
Yes. Yep.
Thank you.
It will eventually.
I'm waiting for it.
We're supposed to get it, and what I
Oh,
do
okay.
is I've recorded the expense and the revenue from the loan. So
Okay,
on here,
that's
we
fine.
have the USD loan. That's the
Okay.
anticipation that that revenue will cover that expense.
Thank you.
The USDA, there are, just so you just to the bigger picture, there are two obligations that are approved by USDA to the tune of about almost $14 million. The first obligation is $7.8 million. And that one will cover the current treatment plant upgrade that we're
Oh,
doing
okay.
for Module 1.
Mm-hmm.
It includes the pump station that we're doing at Southwest Quadrant. And it includes the gravity sewer line that goes from the Maples all the way down to the plant. Our goal in that is to have all of that, because USDA doesn't give you the actual loan until all of the projects are complete, and you settle the loan once everything is complete. The reason we built that into two obligations was because we as the town are using fund balance
Okay.
to fund those expenses associated with those projects until they get completed.
And then you reimburse for it.
And then we get reimbursed by USDA with the settlement of that loan. So we will then get the $7.8 million back in cash. Until we do that, we're using fund balance to fund those projects. And it is a little bit scary. We decided when we first started working on this, not to borrow short-term financing. Because what a lot of other governmental entities do is borrow money to fund that in the short term. We felt that we had a secure enough fund balance to fund those projects and then be reimbursed at the end. The loan payments will then be paid for using major facility fees and to fund those loan payments in the long term.
And you probably said this before. So what is the interest rate? It's really low, but I think
It is,
like 2% or something.
it's.
Are you talking about the USDA?
Yeah,
limit?
yeah,
It's like
for
1.7.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very.
Below 2.
Yeah, I know it was low. Thank
So
you.
it was very worthwhile to do that,
That's a good deal.
especially since interest rates have increased since
Yes.
we settled the first, since we
Mhm.
got the first obligation. So I think it's very positive. We are in the process of, trying to figure out the schedule for when we do the next pieces. That's always the challenge on this, is to try and figure out how we grow without exposing ourselves to too much
Expense before
expense
reimbursement.
before we know the revenue's coming
Right.
in.
Right.
We've always been waiting and waiting, and then, we started on the first part, and that's going along very well.
Yeah, and that's one of the challenges is we feel like we're in a good position for the first loan because all those projects are under construction. If we were to extend ourselves and say go into loan 2, well, then the economy turns down and then we could have millions of dollars sitting there waiting for us to finish X number of projects where we may have to find another funding solution. Right.
One of the biggest challenges we're facing is getting materials.
Yeah.
Oh my God, the lead times are, I just ordered that truck for the new crane truck,
McLean,
over a year. They're telling us it's gonna be over a year.
As long as they don't pull the okey doke on us like we did with those garbage trucks and come back.
I mean, we've given them. But that's the kind of things that we're facing all over the place. This, the
Generator.
The pump station down in Southwest Quadrant will be finished pretty much to almost to substantial completion in the next month.
wow.
It's gonna sit there until next December when the generator is expected. And I'm trying to get MDE to allow us to have a pump around in the case of an emergency, because normally they won't give you the permit to operate until you have backup generation. But we're gonna be sitting here for another, and the same is true for the module one right now. If you go over to the plant, we're painting module one. They're over there sandblasting now and painting module one. They're gonna complete all of the upgrade that they can do, and they're gonna have the whole module repainted. And we're expecting that to be complete in June. We won't get the parts for it to put all the new stuff in until sometime between December and January. So that module's just gonna be sitting there for 6 months,
Out of service.
out of service. And we're just waiting on everything to be delivered because the lead times on everything are just.
Puts additional strain on our existing mods. Hopefully, we don't have a wet spring, but we do have the EQ tank.
But it is somewhat challenging, and I just, we need to explain that part of it, because when we were talking about rate, when you hear back from individuals, it's not because La Plata is growing. The La Plata growth is paying for itself at the plant with the major facility fee. And so we have been getting a lot of major facility fees paid. So that's what's helping with the
And it's
cash.
doubled since what, from last year? It's doubled.
3,698,000.
16,000.
Yeah, we did the rate study with
Throughout the
Baker
study.
Tilly, which increased the rate, and
You do
then
it again.
the,
Do you do it annually or every?
we can, I think, the gentleman's name is, Nick Dragisich, and he basically gave us the information. I'll get with Karina so that we can look at it year over year and adjust it as needed.
What funds our capital projects?
The fund balance.
The fund.
So, yeah, so how this works is when we have a capital project, we're going to use fund balance. If it's to increase the capacity, it would be coming from the major facility fees because they're paying for that. But say we purchased an asset, I guess a pump, whatever it is, it would be we would pay it from the fund balance. And then the depreciation would be spread over the period of time of that life of the asset. And that depreciation would then be collected through rate in when we calculate the rate to pay for that year of the usage of the asset.
So when I'm looking at the FY24 budget and I see capital and I see dollar amounts up under the capital, in one, you got one area where ARPA funding is sitting to fund capital. And then under fund balance, appropriation of unreserved fund balance. And then you look in the column, it says 250,000. I'm on page 1 of 1 for
Okay.
the stormwater management.
Oh, you're in stormwater management, not sewer?
Move right along.
Well, I'm asking, you guys are not asking questions, so I'm like moving through if I understand it. I'm sorry. Okay.
So,
I did a
okay,
question
so
on water,
the,
but go ahead.
well, for the stormwater,
Yeah.
that ARPA funding is for the MS4.
Okay.
So we have the
$2 million.
ARPA funding,
Yeah.
well, that's the 1246, that's for MS4.
Mhm.
Let's see, we've got 250,000
right.
coming from the appropriation fund balance. So that means we've got some expense that's related to a capital, so I have to go
Okay.
back, I have to go to that sheet.
Okay,
Which I have all the capital on one sheet.
you do? Do we have that?
Yes, it's called cap projects. That's the tab. And that lists all the capital projects.
So we're looking at something different then. We're not looking at what's in the agenda package. When you say.
No, it's on the
It's-
spreadsheet
it's
within
on
the
the
agenda.
She's got up on the screen.
Yeah. So this will list all the capital projects and that feeds into the budget reports. So let me,
I don't have that tab. That must
don't
have been
either.
in the documents that you sent us.
Yes.
Okay, so it's not on the
It
agenda.
wasn't posted
Okay.
to the.
oh,
agenda.
it was,
Okay.
oh,
I don't
okay.
think it's posted. I
Okay.
think the only thing that was posted to the agenda was the summary.
Oh, the summary, okay.
Okay.
So then it's in the spreadsheet.
Okay.
I'm with you on that one.
Okay. All right.
We'll make sure
So-
we post the general fund.
Uh,
Maybe.
Okay, then I'll go back to that,
yeah, there's a sheet called cap projects and. that
right, I
lists-
just have to get to it then because I'm looking at the summary because that's what
Mhm.
we're working from.
So, I mean, you can see that stormwater design and we have each of the projects set up. Some of these are ARPA. There's a stormwater replacement storm drainage. So that's the $250 that are coming from the fund balance because that's not covered from ARPA. And it's for stormwater replacement.
And that's where we're going around, like we were out in that, Clark's Run, where we've been replacing a bunch of pipes there. We were finishing the one down on the hill, today. We have those numerous places, that we're even replace and repair stormwater management.
So, Are we
Aging
mo-
infrastructure.
so what are you gonna do now? The rate structure first before we go to water?
Yes.
Okay.
That's kind of the order I
Alright.
want to get good.
Sure.
Okay,
Sure.
we're sorry.
Sure.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's fluid.
Okay, I'm just sorry. I was just moving along.
That's okay. All right.
good.
Sake of time.
So there's no more questions regarding the revenue and expense on the sewer side.
Nope.
Okay, so rates.
All right.
Yeah, so the proposed increase of the rate is 10%. That would be from 12.35 to 13.60 for every 1,000 gallons. And if it's over 15,000 gallons, but less than 100,000 gallons, the rate will be moving from 13.80 to 15.20. And anything over 100,000 gallons would go from 12.35 to 13.60.
The same again.
You're reading that from, is that from the Excel?
Yes,
Which, the tab is that?
It would-
Rate structure?
it would be the sewer
Great.
rate.
You see it?
Calc.
I'm gonna say radars.
Sorry.
Where's where's the sewer rate calc?
Okay, I gotcha.
Okay, so this is, the 10% is the proposed rate, which still would leave a deficit of 241,000 based on the projected expenses. To break even, we would have to raise the rates to 14.50 and 16.20. And that would break even, and a 3% rate would leave a deficit of 481,000.
It makes up about half. The 10% rate increase makes up about half of the,
Yeah, it's
Deficit.
almost 17.5% if we were to cover the full projected expenses.
we're funding part of it with rate increase and part of it with fund balance.
So is it feasible to step it up in 2 increments, like 10%, and then, I mean,
That's what we
15?
we're planning to go 10% this year and 10%.
Oh,
next
okay,
year,
never mind.
is the way we
Okay.
saw it.
Makes
Right,
sense.
okay.
And that's where we try to, I think when Karina and I were discussing this, our goal was to try to bring it up to where it should be over a 2-year period.
Yeah, okay.
I
all right.
mean,
Or get close.
Yeah. I mean,
Yes.
also, we're not putting full depreciation in here when we're calculating rate. So bear in mind, it's still a lower rate than to cover the true
True cost.
operating costs.
It was supplemented, yes.
So,
Okay.
yeah, we are supplementing it.
And we have done that for many.
Yeah, just
We
like
have not
the fund
always
balance.
funded it with 50% depreciation. So
Oh.
right now, you're only seeing 50% depreciation in the expense. And on the financial statements, she does have to take
The full, yes.
depreciation.
What is the full depreciation? Sewer.
These are all things, like even using the fund balance in an ideal world isn't advisable, but at the same time, just to stabilize rates so that you don't see these drastic
Yeah.
increases, because,
I just
I've
remember
worked in
that.
communities where
For the
we
waste,
did that and there's 5 new people sitting around the table.
just
next to us,
grasped
just
that,
like,
well, for
you
the
know,
waste,
it's- That's the
wastewater treatment
reality of it.
plant is 785,000.
Mm.
And for collection and conveyance, it is, do we even have any? I don't think we have any for the collection and conveyance. I think it's only the wastewater treatment.
Okay.
No, we
One
do,
reason
360,000.
Okay.
I'm the conservative in me always would say, take the full, but we are upgrading all of our modules and we're upgrading a lot of this to get additional capacity. And so a lot of this is getting upgraded using major facilities money. And so the necessity to immediately have to have all this depreciation because you may end up having to redo a whole mod isn't really there. So we're gonna be
There's a stepping in.
slowly doing this. We're utilizing the growth in town to pay for that. And it's helping us some, so I'm not as worried about the full funding of
Mhm.
depreciation as what I would be if we didn't have that scenario.
In the program, so to speak. It's tough.
All right.
I have a question. Director, so you indicated, I think on both of these issues where we're being proposed to increases that for a long time, we've subsidized these rates to not have a greater burden on the residents. I mean, obviously, that's a short-term vision or perspective, right? Why wasn't this done previously to catch up and why now, I guess?
I would say, I don't know, because I didn't discuss the rate last year with Kevin at that point, and so I didn't discuss the rate increase with him last year. The year before that, we were very worried about COVID and where we were for those previous 2 years, and so I think there was a concern on our side about, trying to get COVID under control and recover from COVID without jacking rates up on our residents to try and do what we could for them. So I do think there was a bit of a lag in there from the 20 to 22 era where COVID was playing, I think, into all of our minds. And I think it's always a balance, and I would say to you, the town of La Plata, whether it's in the general fund side or whether it's been on the enterprise fund side, has always maintained a reasonable fund balance. And some of us as managers have been very conservative in what we've done and, have really built these fund balances. But there comes a point to where you have to say, shouldn't we give some of that back to the resident by letting that pay down some of the rate and just kind of catch up over time? And I think that's kind of where we were.
I did ask him, and he told me that he couldn't justify a rate increase when we had that much money sitting in fund balance. And that was his expert. And I was like, sure you
Fund balance
can.
shouldn't pay for operating costs. It's
Mhm.
not in good
Yeah,
practice
right.
because eventually that fund balance is gonna keep going down, down, down.
And that was
what are
my-
you gonna do and how are you gonna replace it?
And that's exactly what I said.
And
That's exactly right.
and the previous council too, when you came in with a 20%, I think that it was voted on 3%. So,
It is a difficult decision. It's not an easy decision on these things, but I will say, You know, after Karina stomped my toe for the third time. I
mean, also you gotta consider these rates cover the amount and the services the resident uses specifically to the resident. They're not like a blanket service. They're very specific to
Correct.
their usage and what services they take.
Yep.
Use less water and pay less.
That's
And
exactly right.
I hope that it wasn't misunderstood that I think it's an inappropriate increase or anything else. I just know when people are used to not having increases, right? And we're subsidizing, it comes a sticker shock like we've been talking about. And of course, the greater environment, we got inflation. County sure isn't doing them any favors with anything. And so, you know, we're being mindful of the whole resident experience. But I appreciate your responses to balancing the burden to the resident as well as our fund balance. So I was just looking for some background on that. So thank you.
I think one of the challenges we've always tried to look at too is trying to stay close to the county. I assure you that the county's rates were never set based on what their costs were. They set their rates on what they wanted to set their rates at, and then they beat down on the staff to keep expenses down, which got them into all the problems, which is why they're sitting there right now with major problems at their wastewater treatment plant over there because they weren't putting it back and their rates were artificially low. So, and that's said in private, really, you know, in here, but the county is under a
Get that, Kelly?
With the mic.
it's not something.
As can be.
The county is under, you know, a consent decree right now from MDE because they have major problems. And, you know, we have been spending money to ensure that our plant is a very good and viable plant. But it's been hard for us because our rates are higher than the county. But when you realistically look at what water costs us, $4 per 1,000 gallons. You know, what does a small bottle of water cost? You go buy it at the,
$4.
I mean, it's, you know, you can pay, if you bought it at the airport, $4 for one little thing. We're selling it for $4 per 1,000 gallons of good, clean, potable drinking water. You know, the sewer rates for dealing with something that's a total waste product and how we deal with it and are able to make it so that it discharges back in an environmentally safe condition. I think the rates are, you know, very low as a comparable.
All right, any other questions? So we have 20% on sanitation and 10% on water per increase, which is.
For sewer, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, for sewer.
Well, water's 10% too, so
And electric was 10%.
electric,
Budgeted.
yeah, I put at 10%. Yeah.
That was based on discussions with SMECA.
Yep. All right.
Okay.
So on water. I just have a question on page 1 of 2.
Mhm.
ARPA funding, 150K.
Mhm.
What is that for? Or did I miss that?
I have an ARPA tab too.
Yeah, okay, okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, I missed it.
More tabs.
And that is for the interconnection with the county.
The one over here by Laurel Springs.
Laurel Springs.
We got,
Going to happen?
good.
We get an agreement signed.
Sure.
with the county.
Each of these, each of the ARPA projects and capital projects actually feed from the list
Okay.
into the budget.
Different
Big
tabs.
connects.
Yes.
We have $1.5 million.
Yeah, we said
For the ARPA, fund.
Yeah, I remember that
To
now.
go pay for that water interconnection.
So do we anticipate, now to get off topic, are we anticipate some kind of an agreement with the county to do all this stuff? I don't know, are they holding their feet, are they sitting on their hands?
Say this.
Be careful, I gotta go to the bathroom.
No, but.
I would say that there's really gonna be no choice in the long run. It's gonna happen. And the bottom line is that it's, you know, if the state's gonna turn around and not follow their own guidelines for smart growth, where they keep putting more and more water into the non-priority funding areas and even out in the rural legacy areas, and yet not putting the water into your priority funding area,
Right.
which by statute, a municipality
do.
is just that.
Right.
I think it's absolutely ludicrous and totally against what state policy has been for 20 years about bringing those areas that are there. And so I do feel extremely strongly about the fact and have been very aggressive in trying to assume that, we need to share the water and it should be shared fairly. And I think that as things get closer, the state has to do their part and do the fair appropriation of the water. It says it right in state statute.
Well, and I don't disagree with that. I guess my bigger question was this is really an interconnection, which helps for fire flow and fire safety and all that. Plus, it can serve other areas that the county intends to serve supposedly further south of here. And people don't know that or they
It's
forget
a
about it.
work in progress.
Oh, I know, but it's just, again, for me personally, I just wish people would just be a little bit more transparent about it because they're not. But anyway, that's off topic. Thank you.
All right, so good on the ARPA funding. As you saw that was
Yep.
the 150,000
Got it.
on there. Any other questions on the enterprise income expense water page 1 or 2 or 1 or 2?
Revenues on page 1, expenses are on page 2.
Okay. All right. No questions on that? Look at
All right.
you. Your numbers are just so perfect. That's good.
Oh, great.
Rates now. All right, so tell me where I'm finding rates on my
Okay, so the
spreadsheet here.
spreadsheet, it's called water rate calc.
Water rate calc. Oh my God.
There's about 2 dozen.
I know, I'm looking at that.
We have to
Water.
keep everything separate to keep
I
everything.
love it though.
equal.
I am one that is like that too. Water
Really?
rate.
Every time
Towards
she
the
brings
end.
up Her spreadsheet, lights flicker over and, in the Dulles.
See, I didn't see that on
Dulles
here.
Next door.
I have ARPA. Martha, help.
There's like water distribution, water.
We have, this is the general
Let's have
fund
something
Excel
different
sheet.
then, because,
Well, then there's the whole reason why then.
Oh, yeah.
It's the
The
one-
rates are up on the screen for the water.
All right.
yeah, that's
So-
what I have. This is the general fund budget.
So,
Oh,
yeah,
Yeah, I didn't get the other one. Did you get the other one?
yeah, we're
I think so. I just got two.
recommending 10%, full coverage or, full,
Balance.
expense, would be
Cover.
13.69%. So a 10% would be 455 per 1,000 gallons from 415 per 1,000 gallons, and then over 15 to 100,000 gallons would be was 475, and we would raise it to 525. And then over 100,000 would be 455 from 415. And that would be a 10% increase. That would still leave a deficit of 42,000 that would be funded from fund balance.
It works out to, 40 cents.
A quarter.
It's 40 cents per thousand. And so at the 40 cents per thousand gallons, that's an interesting, because at 40 cents, that's roughly 10 cents a day.
And that is what needs to be set.
Because there's 250 gallons per day per household on average.
Well, you hear
Compared to
already
Starbucks
people,
coffee.
you hear already people asking, I know that it was some conversation from Steeplechase that some saw a huge increase. I did not see a huge increase. I don't know if Matt, you did in Kings Grant, I don't know if people are watering their lawns and it was increasing, but
I
that was a
think people
topic
think about flushing uses water.
well, we can
They don't
ask a
think
couple
about
business,
their,
yeah,
their habits. You
yeah.
know, my water bill is consistent.
Mine has been
you know.
consistent as well, so it doesn't spike.
Yeah, we've only increased the rate since I've been here and as I said, we've only ever increased the rate at the fee schedule, as part of the budgeting process.
Right.
And so it's always been a public meeting,
Right.
public process. And, we're not, we haven't, in the 15 years I've been here, we've never had a rate increase mid-year.
Right.
It's like a
I
ton of
I don't remember it either.
capitalized.
I mean, it's always been
Annually.
at the annual, budgeting process.
All right, so 10% increase on that. Are we done increasing?
No.
Okay, well, good. All right, let's carry on. What do we got?
Okay, stormwater.
Last one. All right.
So this is only one page. Revenue and expenses are on the same page.
Yes, my one. That's my question.
And we're looking at the FY 23 and 24, and it's page 2 of 2 where
2 of 2.
One of one, it should be the last.
Don't worry.
I have enterprise funds, water, 2 of.
This is for stormwater.
We're in
Yeah,
storm.
that's
I didn't get stormwater. Oh, here it is. Yes, I did. Never mind. Sorry. All right. Any questions on this, council? All right.
So currently, there's a tax, right? The residents pay.
They pay a stormwater fee.
Fee,
It's not a tax, it's a fee.
It's quarterly.
And it funds all of those stormwater positions, it funds all of the repairs that we're making.
But it's not enough.
Stormwater's been one of the more challenging utilities that we have in that, we're still playing catch up from a system that had been ignored for many years.
Well, I think just the history, the
And
town
how state
took over
law.
stormwater management in all residential neighborhoods, which typically are the responsibility of the HOAs. So in doing so, we inherited a lot of, I don't want to say dilapidated, but we'll say aged infrastructure that now it's coming due. With the corrugated metal pipe that we see in a lot of the construction, we're well beyond the life expectancy on a lot of those materials. I wish there was more reinforced concrete pipe use when all this was constructed, but there really wasn't.
I have a question about stormwater management, and it's something that we put in the capital budget in 2017, maybe 2018, is the fencing around the stormwater management pond out there in Phoenix Run. And that one, from what I understand, I haven't been there lately, but the water has now been controlled. So it is not a big lake like it was before where they pulled 13 bikes out of there and a number of other things. But now it is, and it's our responsibility. It is such a, it's so overgrown and it is a hazard. What is it, Caroline, off of Caroline Street?
Caroline.
And they
Yeah.
fresh over
Is
there too.
there a way, and I looked at the ARPA funding on that, I know it was in our capital budget. We know it's $20,000 to put a fence up there, at least it was when we did the capital budget. Is there a way to include that in the budget or reassess something to do that? That is such a hazard waiting to happen.
It's kind of a catch-22.
It is.
And I'll say this. In most of the neighborhoods where we have taken over stormwater management, I give you the example of Agricopia, Kings Grant. We take that over and we take it over for stormwater management only. And so we fix the infrastructure and that kind of thing. if there are aesthetics that they want to have taken care of, then the neighborhood HOA takes that over.
Mm.
We have a lot of grumbling around that we should be taking that over. We should be doing all the aesthetics. That we weren't supposed to have it to start with anyhow. It was all an HOA expense at one time, and the town took over the expensive part, which is the maintenance of the stormwater management facilities from a stormwater perspective. I think if we get into that and we start really going in, and one of the things that I'm looking at, for instance, we met today with MDE. We're going to meet again, I believe, Thursday with MDE about our 4 projects for MS4. What we're looking at is with some of the changes we're having to make, we may not get the amount of credit that we need to complete with the 4 MS4 projects. They're not going to allow us to do certain things. We're not going to get as much credit because we have to have more free board. There's a lot of issues with it, but it will get cheaper for us on those 4. But one of the things we may do is to add back in and upgrade. I was thinking of that pond first,
That's
so
the
that
one
we
that
would
makes me
upgrade
nervous.
that facility to the new standard for stormwater management next. And so that we currently have the big pond over at Clark's Run. We have the 2 at Agricopia, and we have the 1 at Quailwood. And those are the 4 projects that we're going to get us the first MS4 upgrade. It does look like we're going to add another small project in there to get up to the full credits that we need. And I can say, what I would suggest is that we do that project as the next one.
When Ben Cardin asked us, do we need some funding? He has that earmark funding. That's what we need to get funding for, those types of things.
You're absolutely right. That is such a public hazard. And it has been asked for, it has been at least on my mind for years. It is,
Jazz asks us
Yeah.
every year, do we
Yes.
need funding? So
Yeah.
we'll make
that is
sure
a
that we-
great one to see if they
Earmark.
can do that.
Well, I do think we made it much safer by draining it.
Oh, definitely. But now it's overgrown and
But they throw trash in it and
They
it's
throw-
all
but-
furniture and lights.
snakes, lots of them.
We have cleaned it out. I can't tell you. how many times.
I'm sure, I'm certain that
Twice.
you have.
I've been here
Become a problem.
5 years, twice at least since I've been here.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But maybe the fence will.
We just throw it
We
over.
just want to see it after we throw it in. Yeah.
Yes. Especially from that townhouse that's throwing the mattress down there. It's-
And it may be a project, when you start getting through these ARPA projects and we may have money left over that we could
Well,
appropriate.
there's 2 million for the MS4.
MS4, right.
We just
From
go
ARPA.
for Ben Cardin's earmark funds next year for those types of things. Make a list of them, identify them. And because he asks every year, Jess just asked me last Wednesday, do you guys need money?
Yeah.
So we have to just go for it.
Let's take a blank check.
Edith Patterson made that statement, our little group, about the Elks Lodge down there. If you all need money, let us know.
We did.
Yeah.
They
we got the
didn't give it
100
to us.
They gave 100,000 to the police chief.
I don't think that was them. That wasn't a delegation. I think that was someone,
It was a
That was
part
a-
of her budget.
was that part of hers?
Yeah, she sent it out in her email.
Because we asked for 500,000 for Dorchester
Right.
that didn't make it.
We still haven't received.
And the 100,000 was actually found by Cornerstone because they went through the budget and found that the initial request was for $100,000 to replace the stairs at one of the state police barracks, and it got in for $1 million
Mhm.
instead of 100,000. So
Yes,
for
I
100,000,
saw how they allocated the money.
yeah, came out of,
So it was amazing.
yeah. So we were fortunate to get that 100,000
Mhm.
because initially we weren't gonna.
The
We weren't
real
gonna be in a
challenge
position.
with these type of things is what you're really asking for is ongoing maintenance monies.
Right. you got-
Yes.
The challenge with one-time grants is you get the grant and it's great for the upgrade.
Mhm.
But what we really need to, and that's one of the things, to be honest, we set the original fee considerably lower than where it probably should
Should have
have
been.
when we created the utility. But, you know, we were very worried at the time about adding a new utility cost to people, and it was, you know,
Gotcha.
$50 a year. The challenge with it is that we, like, for instance, the MS4 projects, we're using capital money, which we're using ARPA funds to do these capital projects. But where we're running short is on the
Operating side, and I get it, you can't use grants and or one-time funding for operations. I totally understand that, you know, but I'm saying, you know, if that fence is something, you know, yeah, we may have to maintain it, but it's really not our responsibility to maintain it. We put the fence up one time. If they tear it down, then obviously they want to be in the ditch. So there's the thing. I mean, I'm just saying, you know,
That's true, though.
you know, if you provided a resource and you destroy it, then obviously the resource didn't mean anything to you. So it's not up to us to continue to provide the resource. It's an opportunity if we get the funding to do that.
All right, we good?
I have one question, stormwater
Yes.
management. You have a Bay Restoration Fund and Maryland Water Quality Revolving Fund FY 23, but nothing in FY 24. Is that something anticipated in the future?
Well, since we haven't done anything with those for years, I
Oh.
have not included it.
Oh, okay.
It's been in the budget year after year with no expense, nothing done with it. So.
So
I
do we need to
figured-
use it or do it again?
we haven't gotten anything.
Oh,
It's,
okay.
it's not like,
Thank you.
it's just,
And it was always that we, because we were a high income municipality,
Don't qualify?
we weren't, qualifying for, grant. We qualified for loan. And our challenge was, we didn't feel like we needed to go borrow more money.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
it was always the fact that if they were gonna give us a grant,
Sure.
then it was worthwhile.
Mhm.
But because we were too high income,
Okay.
we didn't. And so I think that's where,
I get it then.
I didn't include it because it's been a year after
Thank
year
you.
after year with nothing.
Makes sense.
Thank you.
So. I didn't
Fee.
include it. All right.
All
The
right.
fee.
The fee.
There it comes.
Yeah, the fee.
I'm done.
All right, and the last fee, always
Ugh.
ending on a high note.
Yep.
Literally.
So
what do you say?
we're proposing a 20% increase in the fee. It is right now $21 per quarter, and we're requesting to make it $25 per quarter.
That's for stormwater management.
Yes. And that still,
Yep.
I mean,
Thank you.
Absolutely.
that still leaves us with a
Transparency.
deficit of 209,000. That's going to have to come from fund balance.
So
So you're looking
are
at,
we looking to do this again next year?
If we want to start aligning our
Right.
expenses with the revenue, we're going to have to.
Absolutely.
so you're looking at dollars.
From
a
21 to
month
25.
increase.
Yeah,
That's
Well,
about a dollar.
yeah, it's $4 per month. Because it's going to be $21 per quarter is right now, and we're going to raise it to $25 per quarter.
$25 per quarter,
Mhm.
okay.
So that's $4
We're not-
a quarter, which is about $1.30 per month. $1.33.
$1.33, yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Martha, it was nice having you work for here. at the time.
All right, any
The fruit basket on the way.
questions on that? If that's what needs to get done, it
No, I
needs to
think
get done. And I appreciate your hard work on that. That's not,
Mhm.
and see, we didn't chew you out there because you were the messengers. I heard you, Martha. We're just the messenger. But you guys, I mean,
you're doing
it's
your job.
tough. It's
It could've been
tough, so
okay.
we appreciate that.
The expenses are what they are, and they're based on the current environment
Yep.
we're in, and you got to align your expenses, your revenues with your expenses. And
Absolutely,
if you don't do it now, this is what happens because we didn't do it before.
right, right.
Well, I'm very impressed by your intricate knowledge of the numbers and the background and the explanation of some, at times, some complex issues. Thank you.
Especially since she's only been here a couple of months.
Well, that too, but all of you have
Well,
a very good grasp of.
You may have been here before.
Yourself. Experience, try.
Years of prepping you for this moment and you are shining. You are shining. All right,
Yes.
before I adjourn.
Yep, sorry, real quick,
Mhm.
to be brief. So the 209 is coming from fund balance, the
Yeah.
deficit. Is this, what was our deficit last year? Is this comparable?
So last
Or the-
year, there was. You mean FY 23 or FY 22?
They're still 23.
23
Okay,
has-
so FY 23,
is anticipated.
there was 33,000, which was anticipated to come from fund balance.
Okay. And all of this is due to the factors we talked about with increases in electricity, labor. What is our, what's in the fund balance currently?
The fund balance amount is 682,000.
We're still talking stormwater, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes,
If I'm in the right fund.
yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what happened to the 10 million that we had or something in the fund?
Yeah.
And a lot of this is just doing a pulse of bunch more stormwater projects where we're spending a lot of money trying to go in here and put a lot of clips in. Yeah.
This is a big, I mean, this is taking a big bite,
Mm-hmm.
a significant bite. still,
Yes.
Even with all these increases. And then we're planning on the next year to increase again comparably. We're still not going to be close to meeting the 209 deficit as it stands now, even with the increase. What would that would get us to, like one?
Say if you do
On
another
what?
20%
Yeah,
next
we
year.
would do another increase, try to start aligning. We just don't want to, because I mean, right now, if we were to balance it, it would be a 52% rate increase, which is $32 per quarter to
And,
balance.
and this is not having the impact that we would have thought because we increased salaries, because of the salary
I mean,
increases.
it's plays some role in it, but there's also, the concern is, like the MS4, that's costing a lot more. And we have to figure out how to fund it. Luckily, we have ARPA that covered 2 million of it,
Mhm.
but there's a lot more. What was your estimate?
So what are the factors that, so we're proposing these increases for FY 24, and they're not having a significant impact on the deficits. So
Well,
what are,
I mean, if we only did, say, a 3% increase, we would have a deficit of 317.
but hold on, I'm not questioning the increases.
Mhm.
That's not it. I get it. And I'm glad that you took the initiative to do it because I've been asking since I've been on council. That was the first thing I looked at was the budget with Kevin. And I'm like, why don't we increase fees? And I got the answer. So my question is, with the increases, we're still having deficits in certain fund balances.
Yes.
What's causing that for the fees not to have the impact that we would hope? I know we increased salaries because we did the market adjustment. We increased staffing to some degree, not to a whole lot degree. What else? Because salary expense is typically the biggest expense, salary and fringe on a budget. What are the other things that are subtracting away from the revenue that we are creating from the fees?
So we have, let's see, contracted services went up 6,500. We have
Some material.
repair and replacements going up 5,000.
See, that's not
We've
materials.
got-
It's nickels.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so there is the operating cost.
Let's say what is driving the increase?
Mhm.
Or is it just, this is what our fee has been and it's just
Yeah.
we're
it-
offsetting it less with fund balance?
That's what it is, because last year I'm looking at
What
the
percent?
operating costs.
Mhm.
We're budgeted at a 901,000 and I'm budgeting at 898,000. So the fee never was matching with the expense.
Okay.
That's what it is.
Okay.
So was the
Yeah.
fund balance used to balance last year's?
Yes.
Right, yeah. Well, not-
That's the opposite of what
33
Kevin, we think.
33,185.
So that's pretty consistent with what we're looking at.
But he also had, here's another issue. He also had $532,000 in other income. I have no idea what that is.
Mhm.
So,
It's the way it balances the budget.
yeah, there's, so part of the reason could be is because he inflated
Inflated.
revenues,
Mm.
because under miscellaneous revenues, there's 532,000. I don't have anything under miscellaneous
You
revenue.
can't
There's
tie it back
nothing.
to actual
Yeah.
revenue.
So that plays a big role in this.
Mhm.
So did
Um,
that, was that wrongly allocated and it exists somewhere, or is it completely fabricated so as that it just
I have
inflated
no
the?
idea what it is.
Well,
Is
you
that-
can't trace it
I
back, so.
can't trace
I
it.
can't find where it would be.
I have no idea. I thought maybe it could be ARPA. I have no idea because it's not identified.
So if that's the case, how do the auditors not catch that?
Correct.
Well, this fiscal year hasn't been audited yet.
Okay.
Until it's complete.
And how many years was he there?
It's three
3?
Uh,
And,
to 4, maybe into 4.
and the budget looked the same from one year to the next is what he said. We haven't had any increases. So they didn't
Hmm.
find any challenges with the prior year's budget, FY 21.
Right.
Based on their testing, I mean, a lot of the testing is on making sure we're following the regulations on the accounting, recording the revenues coming in,
But not-
capturing the expenses properly.
But they're not
Budget
sure.
is
Budget.
a
yeah.
role in it,
Mhm.
but it's not the major role. They will do a comparison from what was budgeted to what the expenses
Actual.
were.
Mhm.
They will do
To look
that.
for
But
variances.
yeah, I have no idea what this other miscellaneous revenues are.
And that was budgeted for FY 23.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Do we have
Yeah,
anything
my
like that in
revenues-
FY 22?
I can look up, but my revenues for FY 24, for operating revenues, he had 1.4 million. I have 830,000.
okay.
Okay, we can stop
The
talking.
the difference being the 500,000.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know
Okay.
what that is.
Like,
My follow up with the 532 listed as miscellaneous revenue.
Mhm.
Did that correspond with the same amount being spent elsewhere? Now, I mean, it's not gonna be matched, but did we spend that?
Well,
Actuals.
right now, our actuals, are running, let's see, expenditures. I'm forecasting to be 671. Our current as of February 28th is 286. Yeah,
Spend that.
no, we're not.
Fantastic.
So that's what's
No.
important is that
Okay, good.
listen, there isn't a single one that I'm managing that's in deficit. I promise you that. I mean, I spend what we need and I'm real conservative with what we do.
just don't understand the rationale, but why we would do that.
Great. Last,
Yeah, you do.
well, okay. Last comment on this, because this is the bigger picture stuff and this is what I can understand. And I do love the Excel sheet, by the way. It's awesome. Are we, we're planning on trying to balance, are we going to catch up based on this rate this year, next year? We're still not even gonna be anywhere close to catching up.
We're gonna
Right.
have to evaluate the expenses. They looked at what happens through FY 24, see where we're at mid-year. And we'll start working on the budget there and forecasting through the end, just like we have done here, and estimate what our expenses are gonna be and try to match the revenues with it.
When you can't control revenue, you can't control expenses.
Yep.
I just, it makes me queasy taking a third out of the fund balance just to try to figure it out. And we're raising, but you know, I trust it. We're all gonna work on it together and come up with the best solution for the residents. So,
Yeah.
And that's why we have the fund balance, because we've been saving for a rainy day. Seems
Yeah.
like it's pouring right
Yeah,
now.
but it's something that we do have to monitor and make
Right.
sure we don't abuse it.
Absolutely.
right, got it.
All right. With that, I move to adjourn. Can I say that? All right, adjourn at 8:15. All right, thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Got one next month, next
Next
week.
week, yeah, we'll be here. We might as well stay. I'm gonna stay the night Wednesday night.